Ready?
We're
Ron?
good.
Ron.
Ron,
You
hello.
see?
I just ate a whole head of garlic, so I'm sorry if you're allergic to garlic, or if you don't like garlic, or if you're a vampire, you're SOL.
The following is brought to you in part
Entire head.
by NFC Studios.
Is that
The views
considerate?
of the show's
Yes,
host
very
and guests
considerate.
do
I
not
mean, I like
necessarily
small garlic,
reflect
other people
those
don't.
of the
I
management,
like that.
owners, or staff of this radio station. And now, it came from the radio.
What?
Yapatoy, and welcome once again to It Came From The Radio, the official show of the Big Apple Con. This is your host, Mark Torres speaking. We are here in front of a live studio audience at the East Middle Public Library for our 87th live show. I'm here with my co-host, Elman James.
Hey, hello. Thank you for waiting 1.5 minutes.
And we have our special guest who we're going to be talking to with and about. It's a game card maker and artist, Mr. Joseph Monsieur.
All right. Yay!
Now, normally, what we usually do is we usually take it away with the news before we do any of this, but this
Usually.
is a special show because as I've known Joe for many years, what's interesting is that Joe is using AI art, and AI art, as we've talked about many times on the show, is a very controversial subject. So instead of doing the news as we normally do, I think we can actually discuss about the use of AI since we have a guy who's using
Yeah.
AI on the show. So before I want to mention that, I have to mention that the show is brought to you in part by the fine folks at sci-fi.radio. That's sci-fi for your Wi-Fi, as well as the official show of the Big Apple Con, celebrating only 26, 7, 8, 9 years of comic books and stuff and pop culture news. For more information, go to www.bigapplecc.com. The next convention is sometime in 2025. It's already aired, so I don't know when the next one's going to be. But as soon as it does, we will mention that as well. Also want to give out shout outs for our Patreons, of which there are, where's my list? I lost my list. There we go. Danny Grillo, Watering Director Jared Burrell, Newsday famous Dresden Media, Shadow Rabbit Art, Yasmin Array, Rosa, and the Huracan. Also want to give a special designated shout out to Kat and Jose Cortez, who are supporting my comic book Designated. If you want to have your own little shout out, go to our website, www.itcamefromthere.com. Little button on there takes you right to our Patreon page. And also on the It Came From Radio website is my book, Designated. About two warring alien races fighting over a newly discovered power source, the war finds its way to planet Earth, and as a result, some humans gain ability. Issue 1 is on sale right now, makes a great Christmas gift, and issue 2 is in pre-order.
Or Kwanzaa, or
What?
Hanukkah,
Yes.
or election, or whatever you're celebrating.
Yes,
Or
whatever.
divorce.
So, yes, if you're gonna get divorced,
Get a
buy
comic book.
Okay.
I mean, if I got divorced, someone gave me a comic book, I'd be like, you know what? I feel a little bit better about this divorce.
You gonna change your mind and go back?
No, but I would be like, okay, this is a change I can welcome. You know, sometimes change can be hard.
All right.
Yeah.
So, as I mentioned, Joseph is our guest, and I've known Joseph for many years. You're actually an accomplished artist.
Yes.
So, I guess first let's introduce yourself to everybody, and then I'll start asking you some questions. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, tell the audience about yourself.
So, my name is Joseph Monastery. I go by Butterflies in Space.
All
My name is
right.
Joseph Monastery. I go by Butterflies in Space Joe. Some people call me Joe Butterfly. I'm a creator that also has autism. So I fall into that category of neurodivergent people, which is really important because we need more neurodivergent creators and more neurodivergent businesses in the world, and disability-owned businesses for that matter. Which that's a whole other topic that we could talk about too. But I'm also a technology enthusiast. So as a artist and creator and writer for years, to me, I look at art and technology, everything's interconnected. And so seeing that, learning things by hand, is one thing, but also learning new things challenges our perspectives. And so that's one of my angles that I look at things, is that the world is ever changing, and as a creator, I believe that we really have to look at that. I totally derailed from talking about myself, but
Well, that's part
That
of
was
who
very
you are.
interesting.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
So-
I'm a very part of who I am, and I get like I do so many different things. I also work with people with disabilities, which is, when talking about creators, that's one question that I always find interesting that's never brought up to creators, is what they do for a day job to pay the bills. And I think that's also an important topic, because oftentimes we hear all these success stories about creators, but we never hear what they do when they're not creating. And I think that plays into a lot of where my experiences come from, because a lot of my experiences come through failure and through trial and error. Because it's not actually failure, it's only failure if you give up.
That's
It's a
true.
learning
That's
process,
true. A lot of
right.
people need to remember that. Yeah, yeah.
So my
So-
card game started out as a
We didn't get to the card game yet.
yeah.
But the part about you being an artist beforehand, which is very interesting, is that you're quite a good artist. I've seen your work. You really do good stuff. Now, the thing about AI is that one of the controversial things about AI is that to explain it to laymen, for using art, not just for using text, but art is like if you had a puzzle, 500-piece puzzle, and you take one piece from that 500-piece puzzle, and you take another piece from another 500-piece puzzle, and so on and so forth, and then you make your own puzzle. Now the complication is that the people own that puzzle, and basically the argument is that it's stealing what's being taken from that thing to make something else. Now, since you can do art on your own, since you have the ability to do that, why would you decide, even if you are a technology enthusiast, to use that type of program that is essentially stealing from other people's art?
Well said.
Because it's not actually, that's the whole thing. Artists, there's this old saying, good artists copy, great artists steal.
Right.
Is it actually stealing?
Well,
Or
the-
is it influence?
Well, it depends if
The-
you're in California or New York, because
Well-
in California you can walk out of stuff and it's okay to steal,
but
you know,
the
so it all depends
program-
on the regulations.
The other thing
The
that I'm
program
gonna-
isn't influenced. The programs itself are actually taking stuff from things that are already online on the internet. That's what it does. So, like I said,
So
it's taking pieces, even if it's a small, minuscule piece of that puzzle, it's still taking something that's not is, because that's how it's being learned. Now, if the program would be compensating the people, or if the program does it a certain different way, then it is just a tool. But in this situation, that's what it is doing.
So that's
right. So
where
if someone took
ethics comes into play as well.
right,
So I disclose that I use AI, which there are artists out there that use AI and don't disclose, and there are companies out there that use AI and don't disclose,
Right.
and that's unethical.
right,
The other thing that I'm going to point out is that AI brings something really powerful to creators that creators are not talking about, and that is that it takes the concept of copyright and trademark, and it essentially is, well, more so copyright, but it takes that concept and breaks it down, where now you could have pieces of art that are partially copyrighted and partially, essentially, what will be the new equivalent to a public domain from a legal perspective. And as an artist and as a creator, we both can agree that public domain is really, really powerful for artists. It's a really powerful tool. AI works the same way. It's the same concept. It's just that it's a tool, and whenever it comes to new technology, we as people and as a society try to resist it. But that's not always good.
Right, technology moves stuff forward, as Jen has said many times, that things just move forward, this is how we are. You look at the blacksmith, or people who make the VHS tapes, like there's certain things that just technology moves on. But like I said, if the program itself is doing something that's taking something from somewhere else, and public domain is a little different, because public domain, at least the way it is now, you have to wait a long stretch of time for someone to do that. For example, we talked about how Popeye is now in public domain. They're gonna make a horror movie called Popeye the Slayer Man
Wow.
in theaters.
Cool.
And that's something that's been around for a long time. But
Right.
if
But
you
there are
make
creators
something
that-
and you put it online right now, and then that system will take what you just made. It's not waiting 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years.
Yeah.
It's being done right now.
Yeah.
And the issue is that if the program didn't do that and got it through different means, then it would be a completely different conversation and a completely different thing. Like if, for example, the NFL, you're a football fan, NFL, they have the football games, they say it cannot be used without the express written consent, blah, blah, blah. You take a clip of that, put it on something else, and make your own football game,
Yeah.
that's, you can't do that. That's
Unless
stealing.
unless it's under a certain amount of time, unless it's only a couple seconds, which then falls under
Free
fair,
use.
fair use, not free use, fair use. There's
But-
a difference. But also, in addition to fair use, there's also, whenever you post things online, there are terms of service and terms and conditions. And the thing that most people do is when they sign up, they don't read the terms and conditions. They don't read the terms and conditions when they get updated. We all knew this was coming. We all knew that when you posted things online, that your data
I
is
would
being
say,
trained.
I would say no. I would say a small percentage knew. Because I don't know
because-
if you remember on Facebook all these people who were kind of dumb, sorry, and not everyone who posted this was dumb, but a lot of them were little, we're all defective, but, and maybe the word dumb is not okay, but whatever. In my world, they're just not, they just do a lot of stupid things, and they would post, I am posting this on Facebook to tell you this, my information is private, it is mine, and people were doing that all the time, because they're like, oh my god, Facebook could be stealing, so it was like a comet that they never even heard of coming in and crashing in the head. So I would say not to be controversial or to disagree with you, because I don't take any joy in disagreeing. I don't like to be contrary. I think a lot of people I still maybe don't understand what's going
I
on.
think the,
But tech people, they knew.
well,
They
I think also just common sense, whenever you trust your data with somebody else,
Yeah.
the assumption is that it is not safe.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
And that's the harsh reality of it is.
But
is
again,
if you're
people didn't know that
if you're
either.
also practicing any kind of if you get safety and versus security. In the tech world, you get we're taught one of the things that are taught is you can either be secure, which means you don't share any information, or you can be which that's that safety and security, or you get that freedom where you can share, but with that comes the loss of that safety and security. Anytime you go to the doctor's office, you're sharing information. You're protected under HIPAA, but HIPAA only protects certain information. We could get into a whole topic of cybersecurity and that type of information, but how many times let's use
You can use China versus America. That's a good model. Because China, everything's open. A lot of people, they don't steal. They don't do all these
China
things because
doesn't
they're
have-
being watched and they're being monitored. But
Well,
the
but
U.S.
they
is like
also-
privacy. They have their privacy,
China
and then
also
shit
doesn't-
happens. Oops,
China
sorry.
also doesn't have copyright laws, which is also a whole other thing. I
Yeah, how
think,
does that impact things? I don't know anything about that.
so it means that
Like in China.
they can make things. They have more. They basically can copy things.
Okay.
Here in the U.S., we're very, very heavy when it comes to lawsuits, and I don't think that's a good thing. Especially as a creator, for the longest time, I wouldn't do fan art, and that was because it goes back to that same argument of theft.
Yeah.
But AI.
Fan art's a little different, because fan art is something that you're still creating
Yeah.
a one-off item.
Yeah.
A fan art is I can take anything in front of me that I'm holding and I can draw something of the likeness of something I see
Right.
on TV.
Right.
It's not the same as actually stealing what someone else did. So it's like if I drew something on this and then somebody took this from me,
Yeah.
cut a little piece out, and said, "This is mine now." I'm like, well, hey, that I did that.
Right.
But now you're claiming that it's yours because you're using the program. Now, once again, I'm not saying
So,
that
but that-
using the
that's-
program is bad. I'm saying that the program, what it does is wrong because it is stealing,
But that's where it goes.
and that's the issue. So,
But
just going back to the original question,
Disney would argue the same question though.
why would you, as a professional, talented artist, use a program that is stealing in all intents and purposes? Why would you do that?
Because I don't think that it's necessarily stealing. I think that, we are, so from an artist perspective,
Okay.
I think that art's job is to influence others and inspire others. And from that perspective, I think that that's important. I also think that it's important to merge art, merge the different types of art. AI means different things in different ages.
Right.
Artificial intelligence could mean Photoshop
Mhm.
back, when Photoshop first came out, technology, and that was something that I learned when I was in the audience of your show here at the East Meadow Library. There was a whole discussion on a past episode where it was, and this is quite a few years back, where it was, the discussion was around when Adobe first came out, and there was an artist that they left the field of art altogether because they didn't want to deal with technology, and then they ended up coming back. Now, art, AI and art, the artists that are really affected by that are fine artists.
Yes.
It's not, if you're only doing fine art, then that means that you are putting yourself in a niche category. And that's,
And movie actors.
that's good for some things, but it's not good for art, because art is not to inspire niche people, it's to inspire the world, it's to be a reflection as an artist on the world around us. And so creating, using AI art has been a way that I've been able to, one of the things that I learned was, I also write poetry.
That's right, you do.
So
And you write your own poetry, not using AI or anything of the sort.
Exactly.
You write your own poetry, right?
Yes.
Okay.
ChatGPT
So
poetry.
if someone took your
This is
lines of
pre-
poetry, and made a different poem out of it and say, hey, this is my poem now. It's kind of the same thing. It's taking something.
I would be honored.
Really?
Yes, I've actually, that's the whole concept behind Butterflies in Space, is that each butterfly in Butterflies in Space represents a bubble universe of an idea that wasn't, could be, or didn't happen.
Interesting.
So, essentially it's like open source code in the tech world. And that's, where, part of that comes in. The other thing that I'm gonna point out is, as an artist, with AI generation, art generation is one thing, but deciding, what pieces are actually worth, using is a whole other thing.
Mhm.
And that's another part of art that's not talked about, and that's curation.
Mhm.
So like going through when I was, the other thing was the art pieces, the pieces of AI art that I generated were in 2022. That was back when people couldn't get faces right, they couldn't get hands right. I did something right there, and it was an earlier AI art generation model that's not even around anymore because things change so fast.
What was it called?
What was a couple of models that were put into one, and the software I was using at the time, I can't even think of it off the top of my head because it's
What year was that?
2022.
Okay.
but what ended up happening was that there was a lot of pieces that I had, and I had to narrow it down. And going through all of that, another thing that when we're talking about that is that you'll notice that like the cover art of my game, it had there's stuff in the background, so essentially I had to clean it up, so I still have to edit the piece that was created. I still have essentially think of it like turning it into clip art. It's a trade-off. So, but I used my own writing to create the prompts that were used, and from there, the goal was never to create a card game. The goal was to use those prompts that so I used the prompts to create art, and then from that create a story, which I created a butterfly space opera. And then I just had leftover pieces. I was like, what can I do with these? So that's where that comes in. It's a lot more complicated, and there's still pieces that I want to, I want to take art. One thing I want to do is I want to take AI art and I want to paint over it, and I want to I want to create a merge of that AI art with the physical world. And NFTs are another thing where it's a technology that I experimented with. As a artist, I believe it's important that it's important to experiment with technology, because we can fight against robots or we can dance with them, and that's the reality of it. Which is going to be better for the world? Because AI is trained on what we're doing now. It's trained on what we've done in the past. We can show it anger and hate like humanity is so great at, or we can show it love, and happiness and joy. And I'd rather show AI that side of the world, because that's the side of the world that I want people to see and have, and that's the side of the world that I want AI to be trained on, is happiness and joy, because that is what will bring more joy to the world.
If you remember, Jen, when we talked about this on our show, that they had the first world open AI Twitter account, and within like 6 days, they had to shut it off because of all the hatred that was going on, and it was like, I love Hitler, I love it. We talked about this like a couple of years back, and they're like, yeah, we can't have this out
This was
there.
a couple of years ago?
Yeah, that they like,
Okay.
we're gonna launch the first AI Twitter account,
Yeah.
and it was absorbing everything.
Wow.
And like, it wasn't even a week. They had to take it down because it was just so far off the beaten path.
Wow.
So I think that being where you're coming from is a good idea.
Right.
And I think that what you want to get out of it is also a good idea.
Correct.
But I'm gonna hit it again.
Agree.
If you had used a program that wasn't doing something that it should not be doing, I think you would have an extra push behind you, because as we've discussed many times on the show, and as you're very aware of, there is a backlash with AI.
Right.
So is that something that you were prepared to face when you decided to make an AI?
But there was also probably a backlash about the settlers coming to America, and
This is true.
here we are, and we're the best place in the world or whatever. So,
But is that something that you were expecting and prepared yourself for? Like right now, I had told you well before you did the show that I was gonna be hard on the questions. I
It's
prepared
very
you ahead of
interesting.
time. Is this something that when you decided to do this,
Yes.
and how
Yeah.
did you prepare yourself for that?
So going into it, I already made the decision
Oh,
that
wait, sorry. First of all, is there a huge backlash against his work?
Well, for
Just clue
AI,
me in
any AI artist, there is
There is,
a
okay.
huge backlash.
Okay, just want to
Anytime-
get that clear.
Anytime AI is being used as a backlash.
All right,
And
yeah.
like I said, certain AI is good, certain AI is bad. Depends where
Or
the
it's
program.
bad in the context,
in the
of
context
what
of what is it.
morality is seen as
Correct.
now in 2024.
Correct.
Yeah.
for right now.
Which is going to change
Which is it's
within our
different.
lifetime.
It's very different, right?
Yeah.
The pendulum is swinging.
Oh,
Different
the
ways.
pendulum's not swinging. The pendulum's being destroyed, and we're not even gonna have a pendulum. We're gonna have something else. You know?
But it's something like
Yeah.
if you say I'm gonna go out and do this thing that's going to be
Yeah.
visibly as controversial. You already knew it.
Right.
How do you prepare and how do you?
So, going into it right off the bat, one of the things that I decided was that knowing that I'm going to get backlash, I also realized that AI as an artist really made me question things, and so it's also brought me closer. Yeah, it's made me question art, but it's also brought me closer to art in that it's got me doing more paintings and more art and stuff like that. Like this past week, I just reached something like I want to say it was my 52nd painting on a Pokemon card this year, of at least full art Pokemon cards. If I'm talking about painting Pokemon cards, it's just this past year, it's something like 60 or 70 cards I've painted. And but as far as doing painting the entire card, 52, and that was one of those really cool moments where it's, hey, I did something that equals one out of one for a week every year. That one for out of every week of the year, which to me is that wouldn't have happened had I not questioned my my own art compared against AI. But at the same time, going in as creating this project, I also decided I want to be able to fund other artists, and in order to do that, I have to find a way to make myself profitable. I have to find a way to create a product that can create income that I could then use to pay artists. Because here's the reality of it: so many projects where people bring on artists, they offer them, hey, I'll give you a percentage of revenue sales. Well, those percentage of revenue sales never come. I'd rather pay an artist up front.
Right.
But to do that means you have to make money first.
That means money is the root of all evil. That's what I got, right? No, I'm
Well,
just kidding.
it is.
Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe
But
it's not.
at the
What
same-
you're saying is actually
But
the love
maybe
of money.
there's nothing wrong with AI. That's another concept to explore. Maybe
Oh.
there's nothing wrong.
So we've actually talked about this on the show with Jen, because she's a filmmaker, actress, producer, where if you had a situation when you had a shoot and something went wrong and you needed to use AI to fix that, as a producer, what did you say you would do?
I probably said yeah, right?
Yeah, you
I don't
probably-
remember,
You
but
definitely said yes.
I don't remember. I have
Because
no
you're like,
interest
it would
in
be
using
less,
it
less
personally.
of a cost to, instead of bringing
But
it right back as a
yeah,
producer
let's say you had someone from
mindset.
Albany. We have a guy from Albany on one film. He can't, he's a nice guy. He has to take Concerta just to do the thing. He has to drive. It's like, oh, we're gonna make this guy come here just to do one scene. So
Right.
yeah, so if we could do that, and then we can save him. He can be with his family. Great, under those circumstances, for sure.
And there was a
Yeah.
movie called Fall, which came out, that it was a rated R movie. And they decided to change at the last minute to PG-13. And they used AI to dub over their lips and
Oh.
get rid of all the curses.
Wow,
So,
that's cool.
like I said, it's a good tool.
Right.
It is something that can be used to help everybody, and even for yourself, use it as a motivator.
Exactly.
Because you, as I've mentioned, I want to hit home this point, you're not just an AI artist. You actually are an artist, and you have the talent that, in my personal opinion, you wouldn't need to use AI in this sense. But what it does is to push you forward, then more power to you.
Yeah.
Right.
So then it goes back to what I was saying about as well, not just being profitable, but also as an artist dancing with we have that choice. We can fight robots or we can dance with them. I've sent my art to space. Now I'm sending other people's art to space. To promote my card game. I have created NFTs. That was something where I knew that I was going to get backlash from the art community, and it was a risk that I took, but I wanted to learn about the technology.
Yeah, that's cool.
And sometimes the best way to learn about the technology is just to use it and to explore with it and create something. My mindset when I was creating the card game and using the AI and stuff like that was, I'm doing it for fun. I'm doing it, and to me it's about having enjoyment. And if it brings me joy, then that's good. If it brings other people joy, that's even better. And if it makes money, that's even nicer.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I can use that money to fund other artists, that's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think anyone will complain about that.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
So Jen, do you
But
have
this
a-
right here is an NFT, like, that's, I found it today, like, just looking through my books, but I turned my book into an NFT. That was a unique thing that, I got a lot of,
Can I open it?
yeah. I got a lot of backlash from, but it was also something that I learned and experimented with. Was how to set up the technology, how to do a redemption code, how to do that stuff. There are, so as a artist, as a creative, and as a tech enthusiast, these are all aspects of it and part of the creative process. So,
How do you turn your book into an NFT? What's that process like?
back when I was doing it, it was
2022?
it was 2021 when I was doing it.
2021, okay.
Well, 2021 and 2022, but yeah, because I was actually going to hackathons and stuff like that, where I actually built a whole,
Is it a hackathon?
yeah,
Okay.
which I participated in the hackathon with this too.
What is a hackathon?
So a hackathon is where, it has nothing to do with actually hacking.
Uh-huh.
Well, it takes correction.
Well, what
take-
is it? Is
so
it a
you-
place
it-
online? Is it a convention? Like,
It could
is
be-
it a
it
tennis
could-
match? What
It
is
could be at a convention, it could
Okay.
be at a, college,
Okay.
it could
okay.
also be online,
Alright,
it could be at, a library even.
Alright.
Or, but essentially it's where it's a challenge to take, to build something, to build a project.
Okay.
But you only have usually 24 to 48 hours to
Mhm.
build it, so, and to form a team, form an idea, and build a project,
Okay.
a bare bones project, so a
Gotcha.
skeleton
And the
project.
project can be like any project? It could
As
be a
long-
movie, a card game?
Yeah, as long as it uses, but you have to use certain tools
Okay.
and abide by
okay.
certain
Okay.
rules. So,
Wow, interesting.
like crypto is known for them, AI is known for them.
Okay.
NASA even did one where I did,
Hackathon.
yeah,
Okay.
and the whole thing is you have that 24 hours to build it, or
Mhm.
48 hours,
Mhm.
sometimes it's 72.
Okay.
You have to form a team,
Right.
so go venture outside of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
meet new people.
Right.
And then, which as someone who's autistic, that's really difficult.
Oh, right.
Then on top of that, you have to trust them.
Right.
You have to come up with an idea, build it,
Right.
which usually means staying awake for 48 hours straight,
Uh-huh.
and then you have to pitch it to investors,
Okay.
or to, you have to put together a pitch deck or
Uh-huh.
slides and pitch it in front of judges and an audience.
Okay.
And to do all of that within a 48-hour time period, it's difficult. And I've done that a couple times now in the past couple of years, and even just did it. I made a whole RPG out of my card game
Mm-hmm.
for NASA with NASA and Globe.gov, which was a whole
What's
fun
RPG?
Role-playing game.
role-playing
Thank
game.
you, sorry,
So
I
kinda like Dungeons and
have
Dragons.
no
That's why
idea.
That's why we have you ask the questions.
Wait, what? Okay.
Kinda
yeah.
like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So we're gonna talk
Okay,
about the game
okay.
in just a minute, but I wanna take a
Okay.
quick break.
Sure.
In front of a live studio audience.
Hey!
The dead studio audience will be right back with more. It came from the radio.
I'll be right back then.
Hey everybody, this is Todd McFarlane of the record-setting Spawn comic series. And if you're looking for any kind of cool conversation about creators, about entertainment, about all that good stuff, you go to It Came From The Radio. You're listening to the right spot.
Games. Let me get a good picture of you.
This is Quentin Flynn, a popular voice actor known for Axel, Timon, and Raiden from the Metal Gear series. And you're listening to It Came From the Radio. Stick around.
Hey, I'm Mike Kingston, the writer and creator of Headlocked.
And I am WWE Hall of Famer Jerry the King Lawler, and guess what you're listening to? You're listening to It Came From the Radio!
Hi, this is Amy Jo Johnson, writer-director from the film The Space Between, and you're listening to It Came From the Radio.
Meet Grimlock having fun on It Came From the Radio! Meet Greg Berger also.
Now, back to our show.
And welcome back to It Came From the Radio, the official of the Big Apple Con. This is your host, Mark Torres, speaking. And at the East Mel Public Library, and for our live studio audience,
Yeah!
we're more
All right.
enthusiastic. We're here for our 87th live show with a special guest, Mr. Joseph Monsieri. He's a card game maker. Say hi.
Hi.
Elman Jenny Feldy Randolph, she'll be back with us in just a few moments. But I want to take a couple of seconds to mention that the East Mel Public Library, which we are at, that does a show every single month, has tons and tons of free programming from anything from movies, anything from our show, anything to artists and panels. It's a great place to come to, and most of it is free. So you guys want to check that out, go to www.eastmetal.info. Our show is done once a month here. And it's a really amazing place to come to, and they also have their very own convention, which is the MCon, and the next convention will be on the 25th and 26th of 2025, right? I believe so, yes. All right, in April. So make sure you guys go check out that as well. So Joseph, we were talking about AI, we had the controversy, I hope you're all right. I'll put you on the spot there, but I really appreciate you coming down and talking about this. But tell us about the actual card game. How does the card game work? Why make a card game? You said it was what was left over to make it into a card game, but why a card game? Are you a card game fan?
I am a card game fan.
Okay.
Why a card game?
Yeah, why a card game?
Because why not? Because I thought that it was fun. I thought that it would be a fun idea to challenge myself. There's also, of course, obviously there's the Long Island TCG show, which is an amazing show. And they also do their monthly marketplace. Highly recommend. That community has been incredibly receptive and accepting of me. I started off my year on a very low point, and that they took me in as as an artist, where I would paint Pokemon cards as well as while creating my card game at the same time. Creating the card game, part of that too is why a card game? Because it's community building, because it fosters friendships and relationships with people around you. In a tech center, in such a tech-heavy world where we're glued to our phones, especially after the pandemic, to have a thing that brings people together and we're not on our phones is really nice. The other thing that I'm gonna say is the card game world and the TCG world, a lot of times you'll notice that it's centered around having a card game where you have to buy booster packs and stuff like that. I didn't want to create something like that. I wanted to create something that's more like, you can just pick it up and you can play. It's a matching game. It teaches teaches some of the similar concepts of like Pokemon or Magic Gathering, but instead of battling, it's matching. And so it teaches that, but you only need one deck to play for up to 5 people, and it's a 5-minute game. So
how did you figure that out? How much research did you get into doing? This is going to be a 5-minute game, not 4 minutes, 82 seconds,
So-
not 7 minutes, but 5 minutes exactly.
And could you
to
shrink
make
it out to make it longer?
Oh, that's
Could you
with
play
the
really
original-
slow?
So that's where, again, experimenting. It was a lot of trial and error. I used ChatGPT as a notebook, where I would use, and this is a really good way to look at AI, is thinking of AI as a notebook that talks back to you, where you can piggyback your ideas back and forth, and help you develop your ideas and form them. Now, was it good at game creation? No. But was it good at helping me come up with a template? It was okay at that. After I created the game, the first version, it wasn't playable. But that was, the first step was creating that template and learning, then trial and error of actually playing with people and learning, hey, this isn't playable every time, and where a 15-minute game took an hour and 15 minutes, and then it was still going. So learning that, hey, AI isn't perfect, I have to actually put stuff in this, and that was a whole other aspect. But it was through trial and error.
How long was the process from start to finish? Are you still, is this a final product, or is this still a work in progress?
Things will always be a work in progress. The card game itself is finished. Now I'm also creating a RPG that runs parallel with it. That is as a result of that, the NASA hackathon that I mentioned. They have the NASA SpaceX Challenge, and that was, I didn't intend to create an RPG there. It just kind of happened after meeting two other people. Globe.gov has a app where you could take pictures of things like clouds and stuff like that. So I was like, let's use the characters to create an RPG, similar to like Dungeons and Dragons, where you use the Globe app. It's called Globe Observer, and you can take pictures of clouds and trees and stuff like that, and submit the data to a NASA database. Really cool. That's one thing that's one aspect. I also created cards where it's a create your own card, where I can give them to other artists and they can submit their art, or people who want to play, they can create test cards, and that's another aspect of it. And as I build up funding, I want to be able to pay artists for their art, because I want to be able to create an expansion using not AI art. And that's really, really important to me, is that I want to create a future deck where it's not AI art, because it's that, that balance.
So would you find that using AI now is just a transitional stage from where you started to where you want to be?
Yes, it's a transition, and it's on so many different levels. I also writing down the steps as they happen, of how I built, how I'm building my business, so that way it can be used I can share it with others, and they'll be able to learn from it. And as a autistic and neurodivergent creator, a person with a disability, that's really important as well, because we need more disability-owned and run businesses. And there's a lot of supports out there, but nobody does the research into them. Nobody does any of that stuff, because it's a lot of work, and nobody wants to take on that responsibility. But at the same time, if to me, creating those steps and writing down this process is also really, really important, because one of not only just helping other artists, because like that's a whole other topic where it's like going to the shows. There are things that I've learned that a lot of artists should be doing, and they're not. Like things like writing down and tracking your sales, stuff like that, tracking your inventory. A lot of these things people don't do from a business perspective, and that's because we don't think about that. But also as a disability, from working with people with disabilities, and myself having a disability, from that standpoint, and autism and neurodivergence, the importance of that is that, statistically speaking, people with disabilities are more likely to be underemployed or unemployed. It's also more likely that when they have an idea, it's not going to get picked up, because there's a lack of people who will hear them out. And there's also a lack of easy access to resources, whether that be a roadmap or it be access to funding. Now, if you look up, startup grants, you'll notice the stuff for minorities, but people with disabilities, it doesn't mention them. Women or minority-owned, immigrant, that stuff, it'll be brought up. People with disabilities, it's not talked about. Veterans are talked about. People with disabilities, it's a whole hidden world. But there's also, once you really deep dive into it, you'll notice that there are people that are, like, there are companies and stuff that are really looking into this at the same time, like, the banks and stuff like that, because there is a need for it, and there is actually people out there who need the funding, and that have great ideas, but it's an underserved and underprivileged community, so that's really important. And if I fail, I fail, but at least I fail knowing that I took the risk and tried. And it's just another, it's only failure if I give up. And my track record says that I'm not going to give up. I got this far already, and I'm going to continue pushing forward with that.
Jen, you have a question?
No.
Alright, fair enough. You mentioned your stuff was on the moon.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So NASA's Artemis project, or NASA's Artemis program, during their Artemis 1 launch, they did a Send Your Name to the Moon campaign. That was a public campaign where you could send your name to the moon. I thought outside the box, and in addition to sending my name to the moon, I also created a website with my whole portfolio with like my book, a digital copy of that, and some of my art and stuff like that, and actually it was on the blockchain too, because of NFTs. Sent that link as my name, and thought that was that hacker mindset, thinking outside the box, and was able to send that and as my name, and that was how I sent it to the moon.
So if you go to the moon right now, your stuff is still on there?
Yeah.
And is that for the aliens, so that way they think you're the leader? Is that the plan?
No.
Good luck.
Not at all.
Not at all. You sure about that?
I'm sure. It's already a very small amount of people who have sent their artwork to space. To the moon is even smaller. But people that you wouldn't expect to have sent their artwork to space is Andy Warhol during the Apollo launch. And we don't even know if the next Artemis launch is going to happen. So it's really cool that happened.
Was that a question?
Yeah, I'm trying to ask
Oh,
questions,
go ahead.
but like I don't want to interrupt.
Go ahead. What's your question, Jen?
So,
The floor recognizes elementary
Thank you,
college.
thank you. So when you sent your things to space, I've already asked you this, but I forgot if you already answered it. Where exactly does it go in space? Like where does it go? Or if it goes to the moon, like, is there a certain crater? Is like where on the moon? And
Well,
where,
actually, what's
where does it
interesting,
go?
they actually are
What's
selling,
the
like, they're
address?
selling lots of the moon.
Uh-huh.
You can actually buy a piece of moon, they're selling startup stuff, so
Yeah,
is that, so is that
Like,
on
where does
a
it go?
lot? Do you
So-
claim that part of
Does
the
it
moon
actually
now?
land on the moon? Is it moon adjacent? Like,
It's
is
orbit.
It's orbiting the moon.
Orbit.
And where is it orbiting? Is it inside a craft? Did they just
Well,
throw it out the
It was
window?
it was inside of the Orion capsule.
Okay, so
Yeah.
okay,
Wait, is it Orion?
so it's an Orion capsule that orbits the moon, and that's
it-
where this.
Well,
this
now I don't know. Now I'm double. Now I'm
Okay.
double.
it's some type of
confused.
capsule though.
Yeah, it's inside whatever that was.
And now, is it actually this that goes, or is it like the NFT version?
It's an
what is
NFT
it?
version of my book.
So the
which
NFT
version?
goes inside the capsule and orbits the moon.
Well, it was
and
inside.
that's what
So
happens.
the NFT is connected to the internet, and so it's. And because the way blockchain works is, unlike the internet, when a website goes down,
Uh-huh.
blockchain never goes down.
Okay.
So it will always be there.
So the NFT is on the blockchain, and that's what goes in the capsule that orbits the moon and goes to space. Is that what's
Well, they
tangibly
put
happening?
code. Yeah, they put a code on
So
there.
she wants to know what physical item is floating
Like,
around.
is there anything you can
Like if the aliens
touch?
came,
A computer chip.
if the aliens
A computer
came
chip?
A computer chip.
and
And
they
that's
took,
what
they would
goes
take your
in.
chip.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is something physical that was orbiting, but it orbited, it didn't land on the moon.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. Like, this is a
It-
foreign world to me. Okay.
It's a whole.
I have a garden, and those are all tangible things I can rip in the weeds, and I see snakes and worms, and I don't know. I've never been to the moon, so I got a lot of
Are you
questions
sure about
here.
that?
I'm not sure.
You don't need to go to the moon.
I'm not
the moon
sure.
The moon comes to us.
Real? What happened? How? What?
Asteroids. meteorites.
Oh, okay.
So there are
okay,
actually
okay.
there's actually a couple of fairly, and there's some that are fairly common meteorites that come down to Earth that
Oh.
are actually
Pieces of the moon?
yeah. The moon is
So like
all
pieces chip off?
yeah.
I'm sorry, it's
Well,
been a while
moon,
since I
the
studied
moon
this.
the moon is Earth's protector.
Oh.
It's Earth's satellite that protects us, and the way that
I didn't know
it
this.
does the way that it protects us
Uh-huh.
is that so there's
Guns?
no
Tasers? Lasers?
uh,
Intimidation?
meteors and asteroids.
Intimidation?
Maybe.
There's meteors and asteroids, and the way that the moon protects us is that it essentially works as a pummeling ground.
A pummeling ground?
Yeah,
And it pummels other
it just takes the hits for Earth.
Oh, really? So it
Yeah.
gets a lot of hits. That's why it has the pock marks?
That's why
Yeah.
this, yes, that's why,
Really?
that's why there's craters on the moon, because it's getting
Really?
constantly hit. But it's a bad defense
I didn't know it was a
system because it's ball-
protector.
it's
Did
a
you guys
ball
know
that-
it was a protector? Anyone in the audience?
I
Did
do.
you know it was a protector?
That makes sense.
Well, I knew that.
But did you
that's
know
what-
that the moon is a protector, a bodyguard of the earth? Yes or no? Did anyone say yes? Just raise your hand.
And
Okay, all right. I just need to know if I'm really living under a
But
rock
look,
or the
what about the
moon.
moon?
It has a purpose. I understand what you're
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
say. It's
yeah.
not like somebody said it. You're protecting.
Yeah,
Because
of course,
if you
of
think about
course.
it, doing a really crappy job of protecting
Yeah?
the Earth because
Well.
it's such a small item and it is going around. So if you had something that's
Right.
going around, it's not really a good job
Right, right,
protecting
right.
it. It's a
You gotta
movable
give some
shield.
creatine.
It's a movable shield that's not that big
Okay.
to protect the Earth.
But it's just one of Earth's defense.
Well,
natural
you
defense
said-
mechanisms.
I'm learning a lot. Thank
We
you.
also have
Learn a lot.
we also have the ozone layers and stuff like that, which are a whole other layer. of
Right, but the
protection.
layer isn't like
Right.
only part of the Earth. It's around the whole thing. The moon is
Yeah.
just one part that's mobile. So to defend it is a really crappy defense system. Is all
Right,
I'm saying.
right, right,
And
right.
the moon is
It's like a
that-
security
the moon is-
guard that's
Yeah,
like-
you have like a guy walking around you, orbiting around you. It's
Hey, we
not-
got somewhere in the front. Sorry, I'm in the back. You have to wait till morning.
Yeah, you gotta wait around to come back.
The moon's orbit is so interesting that like it's a study of its own. It's tidally locked, which
Tidally locked? What did you say?
tidally,
Tidally?
yeah. So that means that it's locked in position, and
Oh.
the way that it orbits,
Uh-huh.
it's spinning like Earth does,
Uh-huh,
and
uh-huh,
and it while also orbiting Earth at the same time. But that tidal, because of the moon's very light gravitational pull,
Mhm.
it affects the tide.
Right. And
So-
makes
Well-
women crazy supposedly. It
Uh,
makes men too crazy.
Yeah,
maybe,
it's actually
maybe.
the moon is actually more sensitive to men
To
than
men?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Why? What? Why? What do you think?
Well, look at the term lunatic.
Yeah. Is that a male thing?
No, it's just I'm saying the term
Oh, yeah,
lunatic.
yeah.
It's luna.
Right.
We aren't supposed to have a 12-month calendar. We're supposed to have a 13-month calendar.
Why 13?
28 days.
If you do the
Yeah,
math,
yeah,
it's all.
13.
If you have 28 days throughout the entire
Yeah,
year,
yeah.
every month will be the same, and it all equals out instead of having.
And
this
that's
month that we
so-
have right now.
and
thank
also,
you. Okay.
but
Okay.
how long is the moon cycle?
Oh wait, I'm sorry. Go
28
back to
days.
men are more affected by the moon than women?
Yeah.
Wait, why?
emotions.
Really?
Yeah, studies have shown this. It's really, really.
This is very interesting.
The moon is
It's
its
a
own
psychology.
study.
Yes.
It's its own study.
Yeah,
and
of
stuff
course.
that works.
I
It's
didn't know
just-
men no more. I wonder why. That's just very interesting.
The stock market even is affected by
The
the moon.
stock market?
Yeah, there's a whole thing where stock traders use lunar cycles.
What?
Yeah, it's really
I'm
interesting.
learning a lot. This is great. I should pay you instead of American University. What was I doing with that $38,000 a year?
Almost at a time. You got so far off the beaten path.
But this is a good path I want to go down.
But
So wait, we're almost out of time, so we gotta make sure we gotta tell people where to find out more about your stuff. We need all our social media. Yes, the important things that we do. Let people know how to find you and all that.
So if you go to butterflyspacrescue.com,
One word.
that is my website. It has my card game there. There's a well, obviously there's the storyline there. I have my the Butterflies in Space short story up on there, as well as the Butterfly Space Opera there. I'll have the RP. Well, if you look in the press release as of the moment, you'll be able to find the GitHub link, which is a code database, which has the RPG info on it. But I will be posting the RPG on the website. I will also be creating a resources tab and about the author tab, or about the creator tab, which you'll be able to find all my links. But butterflyspacrescue.com. And if you want to email me, missioncontrol@butterflyspacrescue.com.
Alright, and you were nice enough to raffle off
A copy of my card game.
copy of the card game in front of our live studio audience.
Yeah! Woo! All right!
Take one. Number is
376
376
911.
911. 376-911. The audience is looking and searching. We have a winner. Here we go.
All right.
Everybody's a winner at the East Meadow Public Library for our show.
376
Oh man, Jenny Fender, do you have a final thought?
Yeah, it's always good to surround yourself with people who have different skill sets than you, because that is how you learn and grow as a person. So thank you for all the knowledge today. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And Joe, do you have a final thought?
Go out and challenge yourself. Support a small business. Feel free to buy my card game, butterflyspacrescue.com, and keep listening. It came from the radio.
Oh, well, thank you. So,
Right.
my final thought is this. Like I said, Joe, I've known you for a long time, and I want to keep on stressing that you are an actual artist, and you do really good stuff. And it does, I would say it does bother me a little bit that you decided to go that route, but because you are being you, it actually comes from the right place. And that's why I like you, and that's why I support you.
Amen.
So that does it for this week on the Came From the Radio. Our next live show will be on Wednesday, January 15th, and we're going to have comic book artist Henry Martinez as a special guest, and he'll be giving away an original sketch. If you guys want to check that out, it'll be on the East Meadow website. That's www.eastmeadow.info. And I want to thank everybody for coming down here. I really want to thank you for coming down and letting us really go at this. I really do appreciate it. I want you to understand that. Anyway, missed part of our show, go to our website, www.camefromreal.com. We'll see you all guys next week in front of a live studio audience.
Yay!
And we'll see you next time.
Yay!
Yeah, thank you.
You've been listening to It Came From the Radio with Mark Torres. The views of the show's hosts and guests